It's nice to be here. I want to thank the SJR for the opportunity to talk a little bit about my candidacy for Ward 9. I'm Jim Donelan, and it's something that I think any citizen that has an opportunity to participate in a process such as this, I'd certainly recommend it. Again, I'm Jim Donelan. I'm a lifelong Springfield resident. I've been in the city obviously my entire life. And my family's been here. We tried to figure it out the other day. I think it's my son's generation and my daughter's generation, or that's the 7th generation. So I think I'm the 6th. We've been around Springfield for quite a while. And my uncle reminds me that in the Donelan family in Springfield, there are doctors, lawyers, CPAs, and butchers. And he reminds me that we're from the butcher stock. So. My parents, I grew up on South Walnut Street by Blessed Sacrament, went to Blessed Sacrament grade school, went to Southeast High School, and have enjoyed Springfield for a long time. And my wife and I actually met in Bloomington Normal at Illinois State University, where I graduated with majors in finance and business administration. And ironically, my wife's family lived in Springfield, but we met up at ISU. We didn't know each other. She had moved here. She's a year younger than me, she likes to point out. And she moved here when I was already in college, and so our paths had not yet crossed. But just to fast forward, we both graduated from ISU, and we both had been working in Bloomington Normal, had good jobs, successful young folks. And then our son was born, Michael, and we decided that after many trips from my parents and her parents from Springfield to Bloomington Normal, that we made the conscious decision that we wanted to be in Springfield. And so in 2001, we were afforded the opportunity to move back, and we've never looked back. I mean, it's been truly a wonderful experience. My father and my wife's father have since passed away, but my kids got to grow up around their grandparents, so that's pretty important to us, and that experience was a good thing. And so that kind of brings us to the present day, but before I get to that, I do want to talk a little bit about my background professionally. I've graduated approximately 21 years ago from Illinois State, and I've been working with local governments my entire career. I only worked directly for a local government. That was the city of Springfield for 6 years as executive assistant to the mayor. But like right now, I work for a statewide association, and we represent governments throughout the state. So I feel that this position is something that would fit what I know, fit what I do on a daily basis. I've had the luxury of working with all types of governments, ranging from municipalities, counties, townships, and school districts on various things throughout my career, and I just think this would be a good fit.
All right, I'm Tony Smarjesse, running for Alderman of Ward 9 as well, a lifelong resident of Springfield. My great-grandfather, Luigi, settled here over 100 years ago. My daughters are probably the 5th generation here in Springfield. And I grew up on the north end of town, and my parents still reside there off of Sangamon Avenue, where I was raised. Married my supportive wife, Debbie, for about 21 years. The same year we built our home in Grants Ridge subdivision in Ward 9 and been there ever since. We're not going anywhere. And I've got 2 daughters. Emily's a senior at Pleasant Plains High School, and Molly's a freshman at the high school as well. And we're members of St. Agnes Church. We've been there since we got married in '94 at St. Agnes. And education, graduate of Lanphier High School, Lincoln Land Community College with a minor in journalism, and then on to all local, and paid for it myself at UIS with a bachelor's in communication. I believe in this community because I've lived here my whole life. I've been on the Salvation Army Advisory Board for 15 years, and it's a great organization. Just a couple blocks down the road, we're going to open up our new facility once it's renovated. We will be exiting our current location at 6th and Carpenter April 30th. We've had a couple of extensions from St. John's Hospital, but they want that property, so we are on the fast track to exit there, and we do have an agreement with the other Salvation Army in town at 11th and Jefferson, the ARC, and we will be moving and sharing space with them starting May 1st. So, and then because it's going to take probably about a year to renovate that property. So, so far everything's going well. So, as far as my work experience, 25 years with the state of Illinois. My first 10 years was at SIU School of Medicine, and after that, it was almost 15 years at Historic Preservation Agency in IT, helping people solve their IT-related issues. I've helped people all my life. I mean, I've been a part-time realtor for 23 years, helping negotiate contracts, helping people find their first home. It's been a gratifying experience. And also past president of the Grants Ridge Homeowners Association, and been involved with our subdivision that way. And of course, I'm on the Convention Center board, been there for 10 years, and first elected in 2005. I think we're doing a great job there. I also sit on the Finance Committee, watching every dollar spent. Also served as alderman in 2011. It was only 3 months, but I've been there. I know what it takes, and I think I can hit the ground running. And we also turned a deficit into a surplus in short order. So I'm pretty proud of that. I've returned every phone call in the last 10 years. Always have, always will. I try to be as accessible as I can. I'm running for alderman because I look at the current city council, and sometimes they can just be a little bit too partisan and too divisive. And unlike we at the Convention Center, a nonpartisan board, we all work well together. I think this could be a good opportunity with about 50% of the city council or more are going to be new, and a new mayor, which I know both. I know Jim and I know Paul. I think we'll work well together, and this is going to be a way to solve our current fiscal issues. I'm going to fight for Ward 9 and make sure that they get their fair share of city services, such as police and fire protection, infrastructure, and there's some traffic congestion issues as well. But I'm already doing the job. I'm fielding calls from constituents. I've got a couple examples, but I'm probably going too long, so I'll hold off right now. Thanks.
Which agency do you work for now?
I work for, right now I transferred to CMS last summer as a lateral transfer in IT. I work at BIX.
And BIX means?
Bureau of Communication Services. I basically do the help desk support for digital signatures.
Okay, and what's your job now?
I'm the Associate Director of Township Officials of Illinois Risk Management Association.
Which is the associated, they provide insurance?
That's correct.
Townships?
Yes.
Well, let's talk about Ward 9 first. I think. Talk to us about what you see as the priorities and the main needs in Ward 9.
Sure. I'd be happy to talk about Ward 9. I've been spending a lot of time there lately. When I announced my candidacy for my dad's desk back on, decided I was going to run on September 22nd of last year, I thought long and hard about it. It wasn't an easy decision because it is a true step and a commitment, a long commitment. But I'm excited about the opportunity and was then and am now, even after 6 months of campaigning. I wanted to base my campaign really on 4 pillars, and that is leadership, integrity, communication, and service. Those kind of things I think are important and something I believe in. I too have focused my campaign on what I want to do if I'm elected is provide for a strong police and fire department, infrastructure, not only infrastructure improvements, but infrastructure planning, something that is done on a long-term basis so that we're constantly looking at what needs to be done and are planning for it, and as well as a more efficient city, meaning that a city that lives within its means. So to talk specifically about the ward, one of the things that I found most interesting about Ward 9, and it's a diverse ward, it's a large ward, it's essentially the northwestern part of the city. If you were to stand at the corner of Amos and Washington and basically put your hand north and west, and there's some obviously some paths where it jogs around, but that's essentially the boundaries. There's some south of Washington, and there's some actually that move around Amos Street as well. But it includes the airport and things and areas out on the northern end of town. But neighborhood by neighborhood, the issues differ. And for example, if you go way out west in some of the areas that are adjacent to areas that aren't in the city, they're newer. I didn't anticipate there being much of a prevalent issue, but one of the issues that came up in the fall quite often was the fact that there are areas outside the city of Springfield where they burn. And the gentleman would say, my wife has asthma. Another gentleman says, my son has asthma. And I was, you don't know these things unless you get out in the ward and get out in the neighborhoods and have those conversations. I'm a lifelong Springfield resident. I said that earlier. But I've learned quite a bit, and I think if we keep that in mind, and elected officials keep that in mind, you're always going to be learning something about what is important to your constituents. It's interesting. Infrastructure is important in some of the older areas as well, but I've kind of enjoyed this process of walking, and I've been walking quite a bit. My Fitbit can prove it. It's racking up the miles, but I've had residents call me after I meet with them at their doorstep and ask for help. And it might be little things, it might be some large things. Sometimes it's, where are we in getting our streets repaved? And of course, I'll ask that question of the Public Works Department. And sometimes we have some solid answers as far as timing, and sometimes we say it's on the list, but that's something they're going to get to. But little things like, and what I do for a living is risk management with local governments. And so one day I'm driving home from Lincoln Park, and my daughter had a cross-country meet. And while driving home, I'm driving down Bruns Lane, and I'm looking around and thinking, okay, this is in Ward 9, and driving along, and noticed some brush in front of a stop sign. And I'm driving along thinking, you know what, you need to practice what you preach, because we're always talking to our members about those kind of safety hazards and so forth. So I'm driving home. I think I'm going to call Mark Mahoney and have a conversation with him about it. So before I could get from my house from Bruns Lane area to my house, I noticed 6 stop signs that had brush in front of them. Of course, that's a safety hazard and not a very good thing for a lot of reasons. So we were able to, I got in touch with the Public Works Department, and kudos to them. They did the work. They went out and they corrected that issue. I know it may sound like a small issue, but think about it. If someone were to run, not from that area, and ran the stop sign and caused an accident, someone could have gotten seriously injured. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying those are the kind of things that can come up if you're paying attention. I've had residents that in areas where their street is on a dead end, and they said, we have this sign halfway down the street that says dead end or no outlet. But we've seen on Old Jacksonville Road where they put the no outlet signs on top of the street signs so you could see them before you even turn down the property. We have a problem where people turn, usually it's they pointed out younger kids, they turn on the street, they don't know the area, and they end up going too fast and have to jam on their brakes at the end. So through working with Public Works, we were able to put they were able to put those signs up. I'll give one more example, then I'll move on. But we had a gentleman who had his boat on a trailer. It was parked in the street. It had been there a long time. The neighbors didn't like it. The police went out and made sure that was taken care of properly. But then again, it's neighborhood by neighborhood. I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours knocking on doors, listening to people. I call it my listening tour because that's really what it is. Learning about what's impacting their lives and what they care about. And the ward is an economically diverse ward. Some houses are 500 plus thousand. Some are much, much less. So it's been interesting to talk to the individuals, and quite frankly, I've enjoyed it. That's my favorite part, talking to people one-on-one. And that's not to mean that I haven't been holding meetings in neighborhoods and attending neighborhood meetings, because I have. I think that's important. I think it's important that as an alderman, communication is a two-way street, meaning that you're there to listen, You're there to, whether it's a neighborhood meeting or a meeting that you call, or just standing on their front porch, that you're there to listen to what their concerns are, because that's a primary role of one of the primary roles of being an alderman. Now, as an alderman, and I actually have an example of something I sent out already, I plan on doing a regular newsletter. Again, communication is a two-way street, and the purpose is to let them know what's going on at City Hall. I plan on doing this obviously in a hard copy, but there's no reason why it couldn't be done as well electronically, and those kind of things can be taken advantage of.
Tony, can you talk to us about what you see as the main needs or priorities of Ward 9?
Well, number one, I've been trying to be as accessible as I can. Of course, just like Jim, we've been walking every day, and I think I'm the only aldermanic candidate that's had monthly meetings and been doing it since September at Mellow Creek. I think that's a great way of, if I miss them at home, they have a way to come to me. Any way to be as accessible as possible is a good thing, and I've learned a couple things there as well. Back to what I said, I'm just like Jim. I've already been fielding calls and questions about the ward and issues about the ward, and I've been doing what I can, even though we're not aldermen yet. Been doing what I can to help them. For instance, I'll just give an example as far as police protection, because I was talking about earlier about I want Ward 9 to have its fair share of city services. I mean, you think Ward 9 is like, well, they don't have a whole lot of crime out that way. Well, yeah, they do. I mean, we just, like 2 months ago, we just had someone had their car stolen, a Chevy Tahoe in Salem Estates 2 months ago, right out of their driveway. So we have our share of crime in Ward 9. So I want to do what it takes to make sure that we have our fair share of police and all other city services. Ever since I was alderman 4 years ago, I mean, I've always, just out of habit, since I have the cell number of the person at CWLP that takes care of the street light replacements. Every time I see a street light, I call him and I say, hey, there's a street light out here. Can you replace it for us? So, I mean, I'm doing everything I can, to make people safe, and, like I said, doing what I can, and also a couple of things regarding traffic congestion. And one example would be like the first week that the kids went back to school this past fall. I noticed that the city had a overlay project in front of SHG. And that was probably the second week that SHG went back. It was the first week that District 186 and Springfield High School went back, which is just further east. And at the same time, we had a state project at the Madison-Jefferson Bridge where it reduced it down to one lane. That's like, to me, that's a little bit of an issue. You've got two arteries going into the city, people going to work, like myself, that's why I noticed it, and I think that could be better coordinated. I think the city and the state and other levels of government, it would be a good idea if we worked a little bit better together. Just this morning, someone a couple days ago just dropped off a mattress at Washington and Oxford and just threw it right there on the off the sidewalk. It's like next to my sign, but anyhow, no, that doesn't matter. And I called the city public works department this morning, and I would imagine, or hopefully later today, that'll be removed. I mean, unfortunately, those kinds of things happen. I'll give you one more example. About 2 months ago, a guy that lives off of Bruns Lane, after one of the snowstorms, and I remember this when I walked in that neighborhood, because more than one person told me about this. They said, Tony, this street next to us always gets plowed and gets salted, and they forget about us, and we're like one street over. What's going on? I said, well, like I said, once I'm alderman, I'll see what I can do. And he called me about a month later and said, hey, this is happening right now. That street was plowed and they didn't touch us. What's going on? So I called Public Works and I said, I'll come out there at noon and we'll see what's going on. And I talked to the constituent and he said that, hey, they were here an hour ago and they took care of us. So I appreciate that, and I said that's what it's all about.
Okay, can you do anything about burning outside the city?
Well, that's something that we need to talk to, I think, the county about, because I think that's under the jurisdiction. But, one of the things that I've been involved with proficiently in the last few years is finding ways for local governments to work together, whether it's through a formal intergovernmental agreement or through just intergovernmental cooperation on a daily basis. It's something that I think benefits everyone, saves money.
So would you be for a burn ban in the county?
A burn ban in the county, I think we would need to talk to some. Obviously, there's an issue out west, and that needs to be talked about. We need to get together on, and that's something I think that I bring to the table, Bernie, is the ability to bring people together. I've worked in, on many. I've enjoyed. I stepped away from city government 4 years ago, and instead of kind of withdrawing and going back to the private sector entirely, which I have done, I might add. I've stayed involved. I've been on the Crime Stoppers Board of Directors. I've been the president of Crime Stoppers in the past. I've been on the St. Agnes School Board. I was president of the St. Agnes School Board for 2 years. I'm now on the SHG School Board. And I've enjoyed those leadership roles. It's not just about serving. I've enjoyed actually taking on the responsibility and being a leader and trying to bring people together when a problem presents itself to work our way towards a solution.
Tony, have you heard about that burning thing? Do you have any opinion on that? If the county should get involved?
I think that's going to be tough. I live on the edge of Springfield. I live right there by Braverton Road. So the Grants Ridge abuts to county property. So I deal with that every day. I mean, and I've had asthma as a kid. So, I mean, I understand that. And I don't like it. But I think it would be really tough to get everybody in the county to quit burning. I don't see that
It's tough
happening.
to get them to quit in the city.
Well, it was, but it's in the city. In the county, it's a little bit different when you're talking about farms and
Right.
yeah, I just think it would be difficult to.
But it's not just an issue on the outskirts of Springfield, of course.
It's not.
And it's
The
an
hole in
issue
the
in
donut.
the,
Well,
yes.
Yeah, you're right. You also have the hole in the donut. You're exactly right.
If I can, I mean, I think what could be looked at is there a way to differentiate areas that are truly rural and areas that are adjacent to the city of Springfield, whether it's the 1.5 mile zoning line or radius or whatever you want to call it, or something like that. But dialogue needs to occur, obviously, because it is an issue.
Right.
You come out of Jim, of the Donelan administration, and then we've got obviously the change, and Mayor Houston took over and said how he ended patronage in city government because that's all it was before. Do you agree with that? Are you, and I know you weren't mayor, but you were close to the mayor, and I know there was obviously a tragedy you have to deal with. How would you view your time in the city and what that translates to? Would you be Donelan-like in some way, or is that good or bad, or what?
Well, I think if I'm elected alderman, obviously aldermen have a different role than being in the mayor's office or being mayor. I mean, anybody that says otherwise doesn't understand the process. The mayor's the CEO of the city. However, aldermen can absolutely influence policy. They're there to be the watchdog. They're there to be the eyes and the ears of the residents, and that's a role I think that I would be good at. And quite frankly, I'm excited about it. It's something different. It's not unlike serving on nonprofit boards and like such as Crime Stoppers and so forth, from the aspect of you're there because you want to give your time. But I think what I would do, and I would draw upon the experience that I've had. Again, I've been involved with working with local governments in the private sector for most of my career. Have the luxury of working in the mayor's office for 6 years. I've been involved in organizations in a leadership role here in the area. And quite frankly, the last 3 years at the city were not fun at times. There's absolutely no secret, a nationwide, worldwide economic recession. And that hit the city of Springfield and every other city in the nation, probably unless you're in Texas where there's some oil money, but it hit every city in Illinois and in the nation. I mean, there's no secret there. And we had to make tough budget decisions. We had to put projects on the back burner at times. We had to lay people off. There were furloughs, things that were not fun to do, but we got through them. And I would draw upon that experience. There are times when the cities are doing better and can do things, but I think it's also important to live within your means and put your resources on focused, well-planned items such as police and fire protection, infrastructure improvements, and so forth.
Tony, you're on the convention center board, and one kind of
Right.
interesting policy over there is that the executive director and the marketing guy both get an incentive. They get a commission if they sell naming rights,
Correct,
like they just did for Todd Green, up to 10%, 5%.
correct.
Are you for that, and why?
I'm for that because if you don't give anybody an incentive, why would they sell anything?
Isn't that weird
It's
for
basically it's
government,
well,
Yeah, I mean, I
we're
saw it.
quasi-government. I mean, we're not. I mean,
though?
you know what I mean.
It's
We are.
it's
I mean,
created
but the
government
actual
elected.
facility does not get their total funds by government alone, and I think it's a way to think out of the box. That's what we're doing there. I mean, we just finished a $16 million renovation, which was a great example of different levels of government working together. I mean, we had city TIF money as a third. We had a bonding and a state grant was the third. That was a great way. And now we can use the restroom on the main floor because there are restrooms on the main hall. Before you had to go up and down. I mean, that's what's bringing people to Springfield, and that's why we're booked solid for the next year. And you're at our meetings every month. Well, you didn't miss last month, but we miss occasionally. But I've been at every meeting. I think I may have missed maybe one a year on average. At that, I think I've been pretty engaged. DSI Springfield, we just got voted the best new venue with our BOS Plaza, which brings in $90,000 to the center over a 2-year period, and as well as what you just talked about, the $55,000 sponsorship from the Green Family Stores. I think it's a great idea. But I mean, otherwise, if we didn't do any of this, we wouldn't be booked. We wouldn't have the Illini basketball team coming in November for 5 games. Peoria and Bloomington, they wanted it. I mean, Peoria has 12 to 14,000 in seating. We only have 7,800, but Springfield got it, and we're pretty proud of that.
You are also a precinct committeeman. Are you a precinct committeeman?
I am not.
You're not. You are a precinct committeeman, Republican.
I am a Republican committeeman.
And people say we have a bit of a patronage history countywide. So what's your view of that, and what does the Republican thing mean if you're on the council?
As far as patronage, I mean, yeah, I don't
People
even
do
I
ask
don't
you
I
for
don't even
jobs
think
and
about
stuff like
that.
that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be qualified and you have to apply and be the most qualified. I don't believe in patronage. That was the thing of years ago. At least I hope it was. I don't believe in patronage. I think that's totally wrong. You hire the person that's the best qualified. I don't really have any more to say about that.
Backing up the Democrats, correct?
I do.
What does that mean? And same question.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am so happy to have the backing of numerous groups. I'm very proud of the fact that the local firefighters, Local 37, has endorsed me. ASME 31, Council 31 has endorsed my campaign, and absolutely have a multitude of individuals and organizations that have supported me. I mean, it's humbling. Until you're a candidate, you don't understand just at times how trying it can be. And I'm not complaining. I mean, that's a part of anything that means something. And I think this does mean something. And it's really been a pleasure to be a part of it.
Bernie, can I add to that as far as
Sure.
I'm a Republican. Of course, I know my opponent's a Democrat. But, this is a nonpartisan race.
I've heard that.
I know. Yeah, you have once or twice, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. That's why I have Republicans and Democrats on my committee. I mean, I've got the endorsement of Senator Bomke, retired, and Senator Sam McCann and former Mayor Karen Acera, but Jeanette Goza that sits next to me, a Democrat. We sat together for 10 years on the Finance Committee and the board, as you well know, and she's on my committee, as well as Kevin Kennedy that ran against me. 10 years ago, a Democratic committeeman in Ward 9.
Do they live in Ward?
On my, right there off Bruns Lane. And he's on my committee, as well as other support from Democrats, not just Republicans. I think that's why we've worked well together at the convention center, and why we've, accomplished what we have at the center is working together. And I think that's why I think this is a good opportunity to, put some people on the council that can actually work together.
Oh, and there are no Democrat-Republican potholes. I mean, let's face it. I've been down at City Hall and know how City Hall works or is supposed to work. And my opponent said earlier that sees it being partisan and so forth. I don't see it as being partisan. What I've watched the last 4 years, it is at times individuals with individual agendas, and that's what we don't need. This is a tremendous opportunity for the city of Springfield. We're going to have a new mayor, we know that, and we're going to have at least 5 new councilmen or women, and that is that's something that doesn't happen very often. So to me, it's a time to interject some leadership and interject some energy into things and bring people together and try to work together on issues.
Why do you each think residents are calling you for help instead of calling seated aldermen?
Well, I tell you, your question about why residents are calling us instead of their existing alderman is a good question. But I think it's because, quite frankly, at least from my perspective, I'm out there every day. And I'm knocking on the doors, I'm talking to them, and telling them that if they need anything, even if I'm not the alderman, they're certainly welcome to call or email me. And people are doing that. And you know what? I'm happy to help. That's a part of the process. One guy said to me on the phone from the Valley View area the other day, he said, you're acting like you're the guy already. And I said, well, I'm just happy to help. I told you I would try to be a resource, and that's what I'm doing.
What do you think?
Ditto. Yeah. Same thing. We're out there working it. We're out there knocking on every door, and we're visible. So that's why they're calling us. And not only that, because my literature that I hand out, it's got my cell number right there on the front. And that's what I tell them before I'm finished. I say I try to be as accessible as I can. If you have a problem, call me, and I'm going to help you any way I can.
In the last 4 years, we've had, I think, water rate increases on electric to cover some of that. There's been the sales tax increase for infrastructure, which everybody kind of agrees needs to be done. Philosophy on taxes, could you be for more if need be? Because CWLP, they might have to try to some bonds, refinance some of that. But are you open to vote for increases if need be? Either of you, I guess, Tony.
You're talking about tax increases, utility
Tax
rate, or
fees.
anything? Okay. No, I'm totally against
No matter what?
well, not no matter what. Everything's last resort. But our utility rates are too high. We used to be the best in the state, and we're not anymore. Perfect example. 2 subdivisions next to me, Salem Estates and Old Braverton Place. You still have over 100 homes that when that was annexed in, that they are still on Ameren. Some of them are CWLP, but some of them are Ameren, because I guess they didn't want to give it up. But they just recently got a letter from the city saying that they could possibly switch. Well, they're not going to want to, because they're looking at the bills, and the Ameren rates are lower than the rates at CWLP. And what happened? Well, a lot of things happened that caused that the last 10 years. But we need to keep rates. We actually need to lower rates. Our rates should be at least equivalent to Ameren, if not lower. And we need to do what we can to make the city more efficient, because it's still not as efficient as it should be.
We are 100 people down from when Houston took over, from what Houston said.
We are. But we also had 2,000 employees in the last administration, so we are way down. But I do believe that we can still be more efficient. I know when I knock on doors, there are city employees and retired employees that live in my ward, and I talk to them, and they give me some good information that I'm going to take with me. And they're telling me things that and what we can do to be more efficient. Maybe we need to get current city employees to bring suggestions to us, and then maybe we give out a gift card once a month to the best suggestion, because that's what we need. Those are the people that know best and how to be more efficient.
Please ask your question, Bernie.
Rates and taxes, and if the need arises, we've talked about this technical default potential
Sure.
at CWP, et cetera.
Well-
So what's your philosophy on that? And I know what everybody wants to do, but explain.
Right. Well, I'm a fiscal conservative. I am. That's how I operate my household. That's how I intend to operate as an alderman. And one of the things that I want to say very clearly is I'm not in favor of any increases at all. One of the first questions that I was asked when I announced my candidacy, and it was by Jim Leach, he asked me if there was talk about CWLP and asked about a rate increase at that time. And I said, before we would even have a true conversation about whether a rate increase is on the table or not, I'd want to have demonstrated to me that we've made the cuts. that we've streamlined operations, that we've looked for ways to be more efficient as a governmental unit, and those kind of things. And lo and behold, you fast forward, and now we're learning that the mayor announced, I guess just recently, that things are better off than they had anticipated. So they're not talking about a rate increase anymore. So you can't jump into decisions like that. But I'm against it.
Speaking of annexation, I think your property, when you went to work for the city, had to be annexed into the
Correct.
city. And there was a controversy because there was a bridge between your property that was in the township, and they were
Right.
going to get some money. Did that bridge ever get fixed, and who paid for it? Did the city lose money because of that, and was this a legitimate situation?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the things that happened is before I went to work, before I even moved into the subdivision, the properties were all there was a pre-annexation agreement, which means that they basically agree to come into the city when they are connected or contiguous. And that's, as a matter of fact, that's how water was put out there. There wouldn't have been CWLP water if not for that reason. And to make a long story very short, before coming on the board at the city, of course, the only reason I bought the lot back in '04 bought the property back in '04 was I wanted to make sure that I lived in the city. That was important to me. And I believe in city services and so forth. But what happened was when the property became contiguous, there was a bridge that the city improved, and I tell you, the result of that improvement has been phenomenal. The residents in that area love it. It was an absolute safety hazard and something that needed to be done, and was done relatively quickly in the terms of infrastructure life cycles, and something, quite frankly, that I'm proud of that was done. The benefit to the city is not only did they have an influx of residents, which is always good, but along with that came revenues that would not have come to the city, and the revenues from that have far exceeded any expenses that have occurred. So,
Was that like the $900,000? Do you know what the expense was?
of the actual infrastructure improvements, I think it was in the high $700,000 range. Now I'm going back from 4 years' memory; it might be a little higher. But I did go back and look, the amount of dollars that are being generated from the number of structures that were on the property back in this time frame, '07, I believe it was, is over $200,000 a year, and there's been so many houses built. So the revenues that have come in, this is both from revenues from property and revenues from the per capita income that the state sends back. Those kind of revenues have come into the city that wouldn't have, and those are important because as a city grows, it's no secret that newer areas can help generate revenues that can be used not only in that area but in areas that are older and need assistance.
You know anything about this one?
I've read the reports. I mean, I really don't want to get into that other than the fact that from what I've been told, when those two subdivisions were annexed, that the county had almost a $900,000 grant that the city was aware of. And when they annexed those two subdivisions, it's my understanding, at least with the reports from the SJR 10 years ago, that the county lost that grant. So the city had to eat that close to $900,000. Other than that, I mean, I'm just reading from the past Journal Register reports. I mean,
But you're saying that whatever was spent by the city yielded more development.
I'm saying the income that came to the city far exceeded. I mean, nobody can argue differently because it's correct.
So I want to get back to a minute, and this may be a rabbit hole, likely is, but was that an open bidding thing, the naming rights to the convention center?
well, we don't have naming rights. We're hoping to get naming rights eventually.
So what
This
did
is the
Green
first
get,
step.
though?
What they got was just like, basically they get advertising in certain areas of the convention center, like the mezzanine level,
Right.
which a lot of times you don't see that all the time because we have certain events, that we don't use the mezzanine level. So, like different events, main hall's used only, the curtains are closed.
Right.
You don't see that. The Illini basketball games coming up, yes, you're going to see that. Where you're going to have green signage above like the exits, like on the mezzanine level, as well as some area there under the new plaza that we created above the restrooms on the north and south side.
This wasn't put out for bids, right?
No. This is just strictly sponsorship. That's just a sponsorship
So
on an annual basis,
I've
and
been happy to pay more than what Green spent.
then next year you can outbid him. because
So
it's
you're
only on an
showing up
annual
with-
basis. It's on an annual basis. It's not something that's gonna continue, for any length of time unless they wanna continue it. But we have the right to go with someone else on an annual basis if they wanna give us more.
I thought it was 5 years. No?
It's a
Up to
five-year
five, up
plan,
to
but-
5 years.
Oh.
Right.
They claim that each side can,
Right,
you know,
right.
decide against it after a year. At least that's what I was told.
Tony, you were talking earlier about, you were using the term fair share, you wanna make sure Ward 9 gets its fair share of services. Do you have any reason to believe that Ward 9 is not getting its fair share currently of services, or is
I-
that just a term that you're?
I don't, well, I mean, I'm just, it's just a term I'm using, just walking the neighborhoods, I do see areas, just like off Jefferson Street, there's a street called Meadowlark, and you go down there, they don't have, these areas that were annexed into Springfield, but they don't like have sidewalks, that kind of thing. Don't know if they ever will, but, they've got the old tar roads and these curbs that have been there for probably 50 or 60 years. Some of them are sticking up like, it's dangerous. To where somebody could trip over, or you could even do some damage to the vehicle if you drive over it a certain way. Those kinds of things need to be addressed. I know we've got the infrastructure program with the bonds. This is, I think, year 2 of 3. I want to make sure that we get our fair share of those dollars.
And Jim, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think with sound infrastructure planning, and I got to give kudos again to Public Works for their rating system to actually go around and rate the streets from worst to best, and determine where the dollars should be utilized so that we have better streets in the city. I think we've seen some positive results in the last year, and the 3-year program is something that people are talking about in the neighborhoods. There are areas that that had very poor streets, and they're improved, and that's a good thing.
Residency requirement for city employees, where do you each stand on that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously in an ideal world that, would prefer that everybody live in the city of Springfield. However, I think that your question about residency, I think that really ship has gone down the road. It would be extremely difficult to, since it's part of the collective bargaining agreements, to affect any existing city employees. And I'm quite frankly against it. I think it put them at an unfair disadvantage, because I would hate for there have to be a fire sale on real estate on people that own property that work for the city outside.
Well, everybody's talking about a grandfather clause.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously that's something that would require to be a part of collective bargaining, and something that would require a lot of hard work.
There would be collective bargaining. You would have to do that. That shouldn't stop you. I mean, the voters a couple of years ago approved it. So does that mean they don't count? I mean, 9 out of the 10 wards approved it. I think we should look at it. Of course, you've got to get the majority of the council to go along with it. So if you have the majority there, I would pursue it. I mean, Ward 9 approved it several years ago. I think close to 40% of the city employees don't live in the city of Springfield.
Does that mean they live in Jerome? Or
They live or Chatham or St. Louis. Anywhere, right, exactly, anywhere, other than the city limits of Springfield, exactly, and that's a good question. There is a breakdown of that as far as proximity. I don't have those numbers, I do have those at home, but we have a fireman that lives in St. Louis. I don't think that's right. I would rather that fireman live next door to me. It just bothers me. And so I think we need to at least look at it. I'm open-minded, I want to keep an open mind. But of course, you can't do anything unless you have cooperation and you have, a majority of the council that's gonna agree with you,
The governor, there's a few things he's doing that are affecting cities, but he's talking about empowerment zones and right-to-work zones. Tony, I mean, and I don't know if this gets into, he also, obviously thinks it's a corrupt bargain that unions negotiate with their government. So Tony, your thoughts on those things?
Well, right to work, I mean, it's, collective bargaining is an important tool that working families have to make sure that they have a voice in the workplace. And I would oppose any attempt to weaken that tool. I mean, I'm a full union member. So I would,
Ask me or-
with the state of Illinois, I'm full member, have been for probably about 15 of my 25 years. I would be totally against it.
Yeah, I'd be against it as well. I think it's something that, if it is, the governor's talking about making it, empowering the local governments to make those decisions, if it would come before city council, I would oppose it.
And I don't know if it's fair to ask, because you kind of work for him, but the governor also wants to, cut the distributed fund money, the income tax money to local city governments. Would you counsel in any way, or how do you deal with that as an alderman? Because that could be like $5 million a year.
Is that like the revenue sharing, or what are we
Yeah,
talking about?
revenue sharing
Okay.
from the state income tax,
Well,
which the governor was
yeah,
looking at.
the proposal to cut that, I think that would be devastating to the city's bottom line, would force layoffs and tax and fee increases locally. We can't balance the state budgets on the backs of municipalities, and I would be opposed to that move.
You were for the governor, of course.
For,
The governor.
well, I mean, being a Republican, I'm just, I am willing to work with anybody that's who the people voted for. I'm willing to work with that person, you betcha.
That's fine. I know that's not a fair question, but
Yeah.
Jim?
Well, I mean, I've always been this way, and that's the way I'm going to continue to be. I don't care if someone's a Republican or Democrat. I really don't. It's all about what is in the best interest of this city, and it's that simple. And I believe it in my heart. I really do. And I can work. I feel like I have a track record and a background to prove that I can work with individuals from all different types of backgrounds and people from different areas of the city, economically and so forth. And that's something I think I bring to the table. And I think I have a record to demonstrate that, like I said.
Are either of you expressing a preference for mayor, by the way?
You know what? The who is going to be mayor is the question of the day, obviously. But I'll answer the question this way. I think no matter which one of those two gentlemen is elected, I can work with either one of them. I say that very confidently.
Like I said, I know them both well, both being lifelong residents of Springfield. That's where I do sit with Paul Palazzolo on the Salvation Army Advisory Board. I've been there 15 years. He's probably been there 10 years, but I've known Jim for a long time as well. No matter who's there, I think I'll work with them well.
To be fair, I should probably ask you if you voted for Quinn, or is that a fair question?
Well, which time? I don't know if it's a fair. I don't know if it's a fair question, but I tell you,
It's supposed to be
I wish. No, it is private, but I wish we had an open primary. And I tell you what,
agree.
you see that in the wards and hear it in the wards, is what I should say.
I agree.
The primary before the mayor's race, it was difficult to walk neighborhoods and say, hi, I'm Jim Donelan, I'm telling them about myself, what I'm doing, and they say, are you up Tuesday? And I said, oh, no, and you have to explain the process, how only when you have 5 candidates is there a primary and so forth. And, I don't vote in primaries. And I said, well, before I leave the porch, I'd make sure they knew that they didn't have to declare a party. That's the beautiful thing, and people really like about these consolidated elections. You do not have to declare a party. You can vote for the best person. I just hope people think the best person's me.
The city council was able to find enough money for either an inspector general or city planner.
Sure.
Which one would you be in favor of? Start.
Well, as far as the Inspector General, we do need more transparency in city government. However, I'm worried about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on creating a new department. We can see how the use of the contract council works in identifying and investigating abuses, and then move forward if we need to. We'll just see how it works for right now. But what was the other issue then?
Planner.
A city planner, I'm really in favor of a city planner, and also somebody that's going to be a city implementer. If you're gonna plan it, hopefully you see it all the way to implementation. I do believe in that. I think that's a way to get businesses here in Springfield, and I think we should be doing everything we can to bring more businesses to Springfield. So.
Do you have any thoughts about how a city planner could have, are there any issues in Ward 9 that you see that could have been perhaps averted if the city had had a planner?
Well, Ward 9 is really mainly residential. Of course, we do have Jefferson Street and have businesses along Jefferson Street, Veterans Parkway, which I still think we have some areas of Veterans Parkway that we could develop, including out at the airport. We have that enterprise zone out there. I actually attended the Airport Authority Board meeting last month, and just to kind of get an idea how how their board works, and talked. I know Mark Hanna very well. We've met off and on for the last several years. Because he's done some. We've done some things together at the convention center, and right now they're trying to market that property on their own. But eventually they may consider going with a private firm, which give it more exposure. And I think that would be a good opportunity right there along Veterans Parkway, to bring in something. I mean, like maybe a UPS or a strip mall or something. And then we've got the quick and easy, hopefully going with the TIF money there, depending on what happens there. But they did meet, or they attended Jim and I was at the association meeting for Youngston Hills last fall, and representatives were there from Chronister and their family, and they're saying, come spring, which is this weekend, they're going to break ground, and they want to build there. So I think that's something that we're hopefully looking forward to, and I'm going to do everything I can, to hopefully make that happen.
Jim, which one do you think?
Yeah,
is more of a-
Well, regarding the Inspector General, I think we gotta, since the city's already down a path, we have to wait and evaluate that once there's some results. I think it needs to be looked into. I think the council needs to have dialogue about it. But whether we need to take it a step further or not, that's something that will have to be determined then. On the city planner side, I think we absolutely need a city planner. And your question about Ward 9 specifically, I'm excited about some of these opportunities that exist in economic development in Ward 9. And, Jefferson Crossing is a good example. I've met with the Chronister family, and we've had conversations about their plans. I mean, that is an exciting project that the residents are, actually some of them are really asking about when we go walking door to door. And it's an area that is so blighted from a TIF perspective. It's in a floodplain. It would never develop otherwise, and it could be really something powerful and something that is going to generate dollars for the city. There's a lot of commuters that come in and out of the city along Jefferson, and would love it if they could stop and make some revenue and donations to the city coffers as they're traveling through. And as a part of that, in a conversation I had with Mark Hanna, and I want to have full disclosure here, I too have met with the Airport Authority and learned more about. Of course, I knew about it when I was at the city about the Airport Commerce Park, and have learned kind of where they are. And Mark is an excellent executive director, and the board does a good job in managing that entity. And one of the things that came up in our conversation, and this is why, as an alderman, I intend on keeping this practice. You need to go outside the box. It's not just about going to a meeting at City Hall. You need to talk to the residents, and I've talked about that today. But you also need to talk to other entities and private business leaders and so forth to get ideas. And one of the ideas that came out of our conversation was the fact that there is a business loop 55. All right, we all know that. Business Loop 55 kind of goes to north and south through Springfield, but there is not a Business 72 and a Business Loop 72. And I was thinking through why is a business loop? Why would that be beneficial? Well, what happens is, and you think about it in your travels. When you travel to another city, there's times when you want to get off the road, whether as a traveler, whether it's because you have a destination or because you just want to get off of the interstate for a while. And typically you would follow a business loop and know when you get on a business loop that you're going to end up back on the interstate. So if there were a business loop 72, think about the 72 basically goes up to Clear Lake. Clear Lake, Jefferson is a state route through the city. Business Loop 72 could come from Clear Lake all the way to Veterans Parkway as an example, and then cut down Route 4 and maybe bring some new folks from out of town that could generate some tax dollars for the city, revenues for the city of Springfield. Doesn't mean that it has to be those two routes, but that's an example. It's something that I'd like to see the city Public Works Department talk to the state about and at least have dialogue. Maybe there's data that shows that it's extremely beneficial to have a business loop 72, but it may sound like something that isn't going to bring hundreds of jobs to the city, but it could bring revenues that would normally not be here. Those kind of things, little things can add up. But I think the Airport Commerce Park is an absolute plus for this city. The property's there, the infrastructure's there, the benefits that could be reaped from that property being developed. And if I'm on the city council, I want to help that process as much as possible. It's in the heart of Ward 9. Also, it'd be beneficial to have a small business incubator somewhere. I know some of the other candidates for mayor have talked about that. That's something I would support. Economic development is part of my background, and I think something that I add is an added bonus.
Who declares a business loop? Is that the state?
I think it'd probably be the
Does that have to
state and the
go-
federal government would have to be
State,
involved, and
federal.
it's just a different idea that quite frankly came out of our conversation, and I think it should be explored.
Any thoughts on that?
No, I think it's a great idea. I mean,
Thank
like
you.
I say, yeah, I mean, I just,
I didn't think of it.
I just don't know how much it's gonna benefit. I mean, we'd have to take a look at that, but, I mean, there's a lot of things going on Jefferson Street right now. We just got a brand new car wash there, that I put out on Facebook. One of the first days they opened, they had free car washes on a Sunday till 8 o'clock that evening. It was kind of nice, and they have a car wash for $3. I mean, and you go, I mean, you just stay in the car and you drive right through. It's awesome. And so we got two of them right there in Ward 9. We've got Calvary Temple getting ready to build out south. So we've got to figure out what we're going to, hopefully help them in marketing that property, do what we can. You can only do so much with private lands, but I think there's an opportunity there we need to look at in bringing something there right on the new Loop 72. So
We are just about to run out of time. I would like to ask, before we finish up, body cameras for police officers. Do you all feel that that's necessary or not? Tony or not?
well, I'm in favor of that. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I personally think if you've got cameras on police officers, it protects them as well as protects the public, and also I think it's going to reduce the number of lawsuits the city has. We have our share of lawsuits, government in general does, and any time you can reduce that, that's a good thing, because that's taken away from our revenues. I like it. I think most police officers like it as well.
What do you think, Jeff?
I am in favor of body cameras. I think it's proved beneficial to other areas. I agree, has resulted in the reduction of lawsuits, I'm sure. It's a protection for the public, a protection for the officers, and that is of utmost importance.
Any other questions from the? Thank you both for being here today. We really appreciate having a chance to chat with you and get your thoughts on.
Well, Jay, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I can't thank the SJR enough for this opportunity. It's important. I think a lot of the newspaper has been here quite a while, and quite frankly, this has been it's been a fun process. One of the things that I think, and I heard it just last night in Meadowlark Street, as a matter of fact, letting you know where I was walking. And gentleman said to me, he said, your opponent's been to my door, you've been to my door, and you haven't said anything negative about each other. And he goes, that's a breath of fresh air. So, I want to say that I hope we can continue that, because I think it's important, being positive, talking about what we bring to the table, answering the questions, learning about the neighborhoods. That's what it's all about. It's not about making somebody else look bad or putting them down. And I just want to say that it's being heard out in the ward.
Well, be careful if you ever run for Congress.
Exactly, you're right. Thank you to the State Journal-Register. I really appreciate this, and I'm sure the citizens of Springfield appreciate it as well. I'm the only candidate running for Ward 9, I believe, with a record of fiscal responsibility. I'm also the only candidate with legislative side experience, with the 10 years at the convention center, as well as my 3 months as alderman, where I can hit the ground running. I'm the only candidate that's had monthly meetings, like I said before, at Mellow Cream. By the way, this Saturday from 8 to 10, I'll be there if you want to stop by, Fair Hills Mall. But I'm honored to have a mix of Democrats and Republicans on my committee, because this is nonpartisan, and the endorsements of retired Senator Bomke, Senator McCann, and former Mayor Karen Acera, as well as board member at the Convention Center Jeanette Goza, and a Democratic committeeman Kevin Kennedy. And County Board Member and Finance Chair Andy Goldman, and Carter Hendren, who ran both of Governor Edgar's two campaigns for governor. I battled cancer 5 years ago, and I won that battle. And it really changes your perspective in life. And it would be an honor to serve the citizens of Ward 9 and the Springfield residents so that together we can move Springfield forward. Thank you.